love this room because it has pretty good acoustics. So welcome to the July meeting of Joining Forces. I appreciate everybody coming out. We've got very special presentations today and a lot of guests, and I appreciate everybody coming out. So each month we're going to try to start the meeting talking about the Idaho Veterans Guide and theme. More and more people are using it. We've got the cards back there. I've sent out all the information on it. I'll continue to send it out. Bill over here, he is the state commander for the DAV, and I was at a meeting in New Plymouth, and I was sitting there. We were going around the table, and everybody was talking about what they came to talk about, and I was ready for my little presentation. Bill went before me and he grabbed one of those cards about the Idaho Veterans Guide, and he just talked about how it was the best thing since sliced bread and that everybody should be using it. And if you didn't know about it, grab a card and take it with you, and that he uses it all the time. And then I was the next speaker and they said, Missy, what do you have to tell us about? And I'm like, well, I was going to say what Bill said, but his endorsement was even better than what I could have presented. So I think that speaks volume when we have leadership in the community using that. So if you don't know about that, we'll talk more about that. So I want to move to that first slide.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm gonna just step over here because I can't see. Okay. I'm blind as a bat. Okay, Idaho Veterans Garden. In just the last 30 days, we've added 39 new programs. That means 39 of your organizations that weren't on there before stepped up and said, this is valuable, we want to be on there. 24 other organizations who already had their information on there that had been gleaned from the national database went in and claimed their programs. So now they have control over those. They can make changes, they can make additions and things. So that brings a total within the state of Idaho. We've free or reduced resources for veterans. And as I've mentioned before, we're marketing it as Idaho Veterans Guide, that doorway in there, but you can access information across the country. And when you pull it up, all that comes up is a spot to put your zip code, and then it brings up all the resources in that area. I was actually in a meeting yesterday, and one of our people up in Post Falls was asking about transportation and if I could help with that. And while I was in that meeting, I was pulling it up and sending her information about veterans transportation up north. So that is great. As you can see from the heat map, this last month, the majority of our searches were in the Treasure Valley. Part of that is that's where I've been the last month. I've been really talking it up, but we've got, you know, heat signatures across the state. And as it continues to grow, I hope for Idaho to be completely purple. The things that people are searching for the most are, and can you help me with that?
It's help pay for housing and food pantries.
Okay, housing and food pantries, which I think with a lot of our organizations, we're seeing that there's a need for food and housing. And as I've mentioned before, a lot of people will call questions about housing, financial assistance with that. They don't always ask for food. I think that's something a little bit more difficult for people to ask for, but I know a lot of your organizations are starting to have many food pantries so that when you're helping clients with things, then you're able to offer that service also. So We will send this information out. Again, this is just for the last month, but we had 814 searches on the guide in the last 30 days, and there were 349 interactions. And that meant that not only did somebody search for something, but they clicked on one of your organizations and went in to get more information. So in a 30-day period for a program that we've only been marketing here for about 4 months, I think that those are pretty good stats. So, hey, any questions about the Idaho Veterans Guide? Okay. Next slide. Oh, yeah. You get my joining forces email. Last week, I did send out a 23-minute instructional video that Marissa made to get your program on the guide. And I've been working on this, the Idaho Veterans Guide with Marissa and our team since the very beginning. And even when I sat down and listened to that video after she made it, I was like, the light bulb went on. There were things that I understood that I didn't understand before, and it kind of walks you through getting your program on there. She is taking some advanced courses through the parent company that we are contracting with for this program. And so as she learns more, we'll have more videos and things coming out, but I'll resend that out. It's worth the watch. And then if you haven't gotten your program on there yet, it's really easy to have that video and be putting your information in on another. So, okay. Okay. Today we're going to start off our presentation about the Idaho Veterans Garden. And if you don't know about the garden, it is located over in Caldwell, a little bit off the beaten path, but that's what. And I would like to introduce Danny Pugmire. He started the garden over there. Come on up, Danny. And I'm going to let him tell his story about how the garden got started and then a little bit of his background. Just like a lot of successful veterans organizations, it's not just a story about how something got started. It's got a little bit of history to it. Danny has a background, and it leads into the whole story. But his transition out of the military was not an easy. He had a lot of difficulties. He was arrested a lot of times. You had some substance abuse problems and things. And I'll let you go ahead and tell your story, but it's a good one.
Well, thank you all for letting me be here. First, I want to introduce our mayor from the city of Caldwell. Was the city of Caldwell and our councilman, Mayor Jarom Wagoner, Chuck Static, city councilman. They've been an inspirational part of this transition. The mayor used to do a fundraiser for us every Christmas time at the Indian Creek Plaza. He would they had dunk tank in the middle of December. He'd have a dunk tank and you'd get all the other councilmen or whoever and get them all to go in the dunk tank with him, and they earned us money. Every year we could count on his little bit of donation that they gave us. It was awesome. So I appreciate that. Before he was mayor, I don't know if he's gonna have a dunk tank this year, but we appreciate all that the city of Caldwell has done for us. Frank Ellsbury is a board member, and he's right here, 3 Purple Hearts, Bronze Star. He's a total hero to me. He's been my side partner the whole way. Like she said, this hasn't been easy. I mean, I started out with all kinds of things going on in my life, and it wasn't good. I went in the military because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be Superman and put my cape on and save the world. And I found out that I couldn't do that. I couldn't bring my guys home. I couldn't bring myself home without having collateral damage. And I struggled. And I struggle every day. I don't struggle because of what happened in my life. I struggle because of what I couldn't change. You know, I have to look the families in the eye every single day and see that they've lost their loved ones. You know, like, it's hard for me to look them in the eye and know that their son or daughter lost their life. Yet I made it home and I was perfectly fine to go on with my life, and I couldn't live it. It took me a while to get over that and get past that, but being arrested was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And getting arrested again by the same officer.
I don't see him here.
He used to say Captain Matt Jones from the Boise Police Department is actually one of the truest heroes I've ever met. Even though he arrested me, he told me every single time that God loved me, that hey, I have to do this to help you. You need to have this happen. And I was doing things to myself. I wasn't doing things to harm other people, but I was just doing stuff that's illegal. It's just, but he was totally kind to me. Treated me like I deserved some respect, even if I felt like I was a pile of crap. Didn't matter to him. He treated me with full respect. And was gentle with me. Didn't pound me around like I deserved. He just somehow he was just kind, and he said the right things that stuck with me. And then the last incident I had with him, it stuck to the core. I struggled. Harry French came home, driving by on the edge of the freeway, and that was I remember I'll never forget it. I got out of my car on the edge of the freeway, and they were coming past me with all the motorcycles, and the procession was coming by, and I got out to show respect, and stood on the side of the freeway like I was showing respect. And the first thing that came over to my mind was, you honestly think you're respecting her by how you're living your life? You're gonna stand here on the side of the freeway and stand at attention and show her respect. But how bad are you to become? And I was like, that was a clicking moment, and that's December, that was 2005. And so for the next 5 years, I struggled a lot because I kept thinking those thoughts over my head over and over and over. What kind of person am I that would do that? And so Caldwell gave me a chance to step up to the plate and help an individual that wanted to do the garden. We started the garden. That was triple MT. And he wanted to do a garden, and I told the governor, I said, yeah, I'll help him. Sure, I'll help him. I had no intentions of helping him. But I was like, yeah, I'm not helping this guy. He'll have to get something in the Navy, so, but we came over to the garden, and the fence had, all rubber tires on it. They were deflated, and we get to the gate. He had it gone through the system so much that he sent his checks back to the VA. He had disability, he gave him PTSD, his limbs. He was 100%, but he didn't want his checks to be for those reasons. He wanted to give him his checks for my limbs missing or whatever. But he fought him with your claim, and he just sent their checks back because he didn't want to accept his claim the way it was written. And so he fought with him, and he was kind of a little angry. People had told him they'd help him, and then they didn't help him. And when we got to the fence, he tried to open the gate, and he couldn't get it because I had never realized that if you're blown off at your hips, you have nothing to brace off and push off of. It was the first time I'd actually seen somebody that was, struggling with it. His arm was that big, but he couldn't get that gate to move. And he picked it up and it wouldn't go anywhere. So I reached up finally and pushed it over. I was like, leaning, and he's like, I had it. I was like, whatever, and he went to go take off. He had to push wheelchair, and he went to take off, and he flipped over. Boom, flipped out of his chair. Chair went in the air. Not only did he land in the mud, but the chair pounded him into the mud. And I was like, almost like you deserved that kind of deal. But inside me, my heart was just like totally, it shattered me, because here's this guy that just wanted a little help, and I'm No, I'm putting it off, helping him. You know, I didn't help. You know, and it's like, he rolls over, cleans his eye out and he says, "Are you gonna cry?" And I didn't think, you know, I was like, yeah, I was acting tough, but I guess he could see that on the exterior, I was ready to cry because of what I just witnessed. You know, all he wanted to do is garden. And so I was like, I was gonna do like I normally do, is fight, you know, fight back. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna cry. I can't believe what kind of person I've turned into. And he said, it did shock him. You know, he didn't expect that. He expected me to be same thing he was, you know, being a jerk, you know. But I'll never forget that. But he just it broke him and me at the same time. Because I said, yeah, I'm gonna cry. And he was like, he goes, "Hey, will you help me get back in my chair?" And he wouldn't let me touch and help do anything for him before that. And so I helped him back in his chair, got him mud, cleaned out his eyes, out of his teeth, out of his ear. And he said, "Hold on a second. Before we go in," grabbed my hand. He said, "Say a prayer." And I was like, what? What? I'm so far from God. You know, I've gotten so far away from him. I didn't realize how far I had gotten. He broke me. And it was he could have been the toughest guy in the world, but nobody's put me to my knees like that. It just totally belly sucked me. I went to my knees and bawled like a little kid. We went in there, we started that day, and we've been doing it ever since. And that's how the garden started. You know, it was crazy. That's just crazy thing. So, but the garden's been the best thing that I've ever had in my life. We celebrate the life of people instead of mourning death. And to join up with Idaho Women Memorial, I don't think there's anybody we could represent any better than Carrie. Because Carrie is the first female ever killed in combat from Idaho. She's a Caldwell resident her whole life. She joined the military so she could go to college. The family's not rich. They're great people.
We'll get around to that just a little bit more here. I do want to say, first time I heard Danny's story, Boise Police Department, and when I found out it was the Boise police officer, I said, "Do you know who it was?" And he's like, "The last name was Jones." Well, you know, we had 5, 6, 7 Joneses there, and that had been several years ago, and things. And so I had access to records at that time and did some research and found out that it was Matt Jones. He was an officer at the time when he arrested Danny. And at that very moment, Matt Jones was my lieutenant who I reported to. And I went and talked to Matt and told him, you know, what the situation was. And out of the thousands of people that he had arrested in his career, he actually remembered Danny. And he remembered that last night when he said, you know, "I'm tired of arresting you, better than this," and things. And I reintroduced them, and they've actually become very good friends. Matt and his family actually volunteer at the Idaho Veterans Home. They go out to the garden and do some volunteering out there and things. And just as a little bit of a side note, I do some teaching for crisis intervention training for law enforcement. And I bring Danny in, we kind of tag team it and do it together. And I have him tell this story. And I think it applies to law enforcement as much as it applies to you, that, you know, you as an individual can make a difference in a veteran's life, in somebody's life. And it may not be the first time you talk to them or the second time you talk to them, but at some point it's going to make an impact. And part of the reason I tell the law enforcement officers that is because they deal with a lot of crap themselves, and you as providers deal with a lot of crap and things. And I want you all to know that you all have a Danny Pugmire in your life. You may never get the chance to meet that person, and things. I hope you do. But just know that with what you're doing out there in the community, you are making a difference. And I'm sure that there's someone that has changed their life and is changing the lives of others the way that Danny is. And it took one person to show him some respect in one of his worst times. So.
Yeah, and you can impact somebody that well. I mean, was so impactful that I'm here today. My family's happy, my children are happy. I have a relationship with my children, my mom and dad. My mom likes me again, so I've been lucky for that. But I'm blessed, and it all fell into the right place, right time, right everything. I didn't think I'd ever get my life back. I thought I'd die on the streets, and wasn't that I didn't have money coming in. It just was that I couldn't get this to not be broken here. And
So let's talk about the happy stuff about the garden. We've got some pictures up here. How many garden boxes do you have out there? We're not done with you yet.
We have 40 raised beds, center boxes. The city donated. We started off with 2 acres, and then we went to 2.5 acres, and then we went to 5 acres. And we've grown. We pushed the Parks Department place on the other side of town so they could get all their stuff, the equipment they did it for accommodating to us the whole time that we've been growing. And we've grown so well that we could probably do a few more even now.
I promised Marissa McCarter, my assistant here at Idaho Division of Veteran Services, I was not going to put her on the spot to speak. That doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about you.
I know.
In 2019, she made her way to the garden, and Danny introduced us, and it was at that point Marissa hadn't talked about her service, thought benefits or anything. She had been out for 14 years. And the story that I sent out to everybody on the email, Marbles, I hope you had a chance to read it. If you haven't, take the time to read it. But she still found it very difficult to talk about her experiences in Iraq and her friendship with Carrie French. And so she wrote that short story. And that has kind of evolved into the inspiration for the design of the Idaho Women's Veterans Memorial, which is something that had been talked about for years before, Marissa was even on the scene at the garden, but had not really come to fruition. So if you want to move to the next slide. As Danny mentioned, Carrie French was born and raised in Caldwell, and she joined the Idaho Army National Guard right out of high school. She missed. Did she miss high school graduation too?
I know I did.
Okay.
I heard
Marissa missed her high school graduation to join us. Carrie joined at about the same time. Carrie was a cheerleader at Caldwell High School and things, but she was deployed to Iraq in 2004, 2005, and she was tragically killed by a roadside bomb June 5th, 2005. She was the first woman from Idaho killed in combat. And so not only does she hold that distinction, she was also just a very nice person. And it's not just the stories I've heard from Marissa, as I've gotten to know more of you that knew her. I've gotten to be friends with her mom and things. She really was just a really fun person. And if you look up here on the screen, there's a kind of a cartoon graphic at the bottom of the boot, smiling face on it. When her belongings were sent back from Iraq after she was killed, her boots and her uniform were sent to her mother. And on the bottom, Carrie had drawn us a smiley face with a Sharpie on it. And she said, that was just Carrie. And so they've developed that into a graphic that they're using in some of the marketing materials for the Idaho Women Veterans Memorial. So the garden has a spot out there, and we've kind of spread the word around the state. Danny's worked on that. Some of my outreach, I've spread the word about it. And not only will the memorial honor Carrie in her hometown, but it's going to honor women veterans and the camaraderie that they share being part of the military, not just women working in the military with each other, but their camaraderie with their brothers and things. And I think that they've done a really good job of coming up with the concept and the marketing for that. There are brochures on the back table that you can grab that tell more about it. Part of some of the people say, well, something like this, especially when they see the concept of the statue, they're like, that should be maybe at the Capitol in Boise, or, you know, in a very prominent place in Caldwell and things. Part of the reason of having it at the garden, which is a little bit off the beaten path, is women veterans sometimes have a hard time, more so than their male counterparts, about talking about their service, admitting that they were a veteran, that they served, just like the males in the service and things. And just the way that Marissa found her healing out there at the garden, we're hoping that it'll bring others out there to not only see the memorial, but to find that healing out there. Do you have anything else you want to add about that?
Yeah, and the other part too, where the position the statue is going to go is because Carrie's mom asked it to go there. She participated. She was the second person that came to the garden to do a box. The individual I helped start the garden with passed away before we got to open the garden, the day before. And so Carrie's mom came out and with the Herreras and started the garden area, and she later just told me, hey, I would like, if you're going to do a statue, I'd really like to see it come to the garden. And I said, okay, we'll work on it. And I've been working on it ever since. You know, I thought we'd do it somewhere else, but I want to put it where she wants to have it at. So, and that's the reason we're coming to the garden, but it wasn't my thought or nothing. So,
Okay. So to come up with a memorial takes the committee, and a lot of people have had a lot of input in this. To commission a statue, you need to find an artist. And we all know that, you know, sometimes there's some crazy artists out there, and then there's some that we're just completely in awe of. The artist for this particular commissioning is Benjamin Victor. Ben, do you want to come up here? I'm going to put you on the spot. We are lucky enough to have world-renowned, literally world-renowned sculptor Benjamin Victor lives right here in Boise. And I'll let you talk about yourself a little bit, but I'm going to brag just a little bit. In Italy, he is known as the 21st century Michelangelo. And that's saying one hell of a lot, because Michelangelo is their guy there. So, and then he has more statues than anyone else at Statuary Hall in the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And I'll let you talk a little bit. You can talk a little bit about yourself, but also talk about how this project kind of came into your lap and what it means to you.
This means a ton. Thank you for letting me speak today. Just to be around Carrie's family and around Danny and everybody involved in this project, especially Marissa, and hear about the heart of Carrie French and the loss that it means to Idaho, to Caldwell. It is just something that is so near and dear to my heart now that I really want to see it happen. And the placement that they talked about at the Veterans Garden is so important, because as you go into the garden, I immediately feel the heart there. that there's love, there's care, even amidst the loss, all of this loss, you see all of these garden boxes dedicated and the sadness of the families, but you also see hope, that there's a continuing on of hope that Danny just talked about in his life and in every veteran's life, and then the families who've lost loved ones. And I think of that ultimate price that was paid and everything that we enjoy. We just came off 4th of July, and we talk about those things even in my family, that all of the things that we enjoy and take for granted every day is thanks to the service members and of course those who paid that ultimate price. So you really feel that gravity when you come into the Veterans Garden. So it's a special place, and it's a special place for the Valley. And I think that a monument like this, recognizing Carrie and her sacrifice, definitely goes out to a broader story of that service and loss. And it's the perfect memorial for Idaho women who have served, because here you have this icon for Idaho that was just a great person, a loving person who touched her community in her short life and will always be there with her family. And she's got her garden box, and the memory of her will be carried on forever. And those of you who didn't read the story, please do read it. That Marbles story just had me in tears, and that was when I was really fully on board to do this sculpture. I read that story and I just cried looking at the pictures of Marissa and Carrie, so young. I mean, they're the ages of my kids now. And just to see and think of their positivity, and they're going out there, like Danny said, to help the world. And then to hear of the loss and how it impacted Marissa and everyone around Carrie's life is really a story that goes across every avenue of veterans who've served, family members of veterans who served, and those who are lost. So it's the perfect memorial to have at the garden. And I'm honored as a sculptor to get to do it. And Mitzi said such nice things about me, but I got to tell you, it's humbling to get to use the talent I have to elevate somebody like Carrie, because I don't deserve it. And I know that many of us that are here today, including like how Danny expressed, anything we've done just pales in comparison to people like Carrie, who lived that life, walked that walk, and gave and paid that ultimate price. So thank you for having me here today. This is so important for me.
Okay, let you check. Got a picture up here. We'll just, go back one. Just, if you haven't been up to the top of the Idaho Veterans Cemetery in Boise, that statue that was installed up there a couple years ago, that is one of Ben's works and things. And while I've got you here, I'm just going to quickly have you tell just a little bit about some of the behind the scenes stuff with that, and then we'll talk about the Women's Memorial, but especially the heart and things.
Yeah, if you haven't been up, I mean, I'm assuming most of you have been up to the Idaho State Veterans Cemetery at the top where the flag is. And former Governor Dirk Kempthorne was kind of spearheaded this effort, because he said, we did the Idaho Veterans Cemetery when I was in office, but I always envisioned something in this circular, what's kind of a teardrop shape that you drive around by the flag. It needed something in this focal point. And so we started kicking around ideas and talking, and we went up there and shot photos. And it's this beautiful space that's very peaceful, with all those graves and headstones leading up to the flag. And you just feel this sense of these protectors that lived before us. Many of them lived before us, and it's overlooking the whole valley. And so I thought of this concept in design and talked to Dirk about it. And we came up with this idea together of having a kneeling warrior, and he's in Vietnam gear with his hands clasped like in prayer. And he's got the dog tags of the fallen in his hands, his fallen friend. And then on his back is this female soldier, and she's got her hand on his shoulder, and she's looking out over the valley as a protector and toward the flag. So the interesting thing about it is I designed it that way because you can really get all the way around the piece on the site. So I wanted it to have interesting angles from every viewing point. And we wanted a male and female so that it would represent everybody, everyone who served. So we've got them looking out, and we did this powerful design and dedication. We unveiled it. It was just so beautiful. We had so many veterans there and so many tears and so many coins laid down on the piece. Just this moving time that we unveiled the sculpture. And you can't even put it into words, but I came back later that day and there were still just throngs of crowds there, and we were walking around, and my neighbor happened to be up there, and he had a veteran with him that was a World War II vet. We walked it with him and got our photo, and we were talking with him. And as we were walking around the grave sites, my daughter asked, how come some of the headstones are pointed this way, some are pointed that way? And I didn't know. And I said, I looked, and the World War II veteran answered that. And he said, well, these ones are the females. So it could be their wife or family member that want to be buried near them at the cemetery. And the female headstones are facing this way, and the male headstones are facing that way. This World War II veteran explained it to my daughter, and it just gives me goosebumps to this day. It just hit me that when I designed that piece, I didn't know that, but the female warrior is facing the same way as those female headstones. The male warrior is facing the same way as the male headstones. I mean, it is so perfectly designed in spirit to that space, and I didn't plan it. I can't take credit for that. But that's those kind of things that are underlying in all of these projects that I get to do for our veterans that just move you to the furthest degree where you're like, man, there's something else at work here when I'm working on these. So it's just amazing to be a part of it, really.
Well, and most of our veterans are male, and the spouses being female would be facing that way. It's not always the case, because if the veteran is female.
Yeah,
Exactly. So something that some people didn't know, Dirk Camthorne, as he traveled the world, he would collect dirt from each battlefield that he visited, and he made it a point to travel the world, and he has been to every battlefield that the United States has fought on: Vietnam, Europe, everywhere. And I can only imagine what his wife thought of this, because he had all of these jars of dirt and sand at his house, and I'm sure she was saying, what are you going to do with all that? So what did we end up doing, or were they able to do?
So all of this soil from all of the battlefields was placed within a cast purple heart. I made a purple heart out of bronze, and it's hollow cast. And we put the soil inside of the heart, welded it in there, and those hearts are welded inside of each of those figures. So there's inside the monument, there's as much meaning as outside of the monument itself. So it really is just a beautiful concept.
Yeah. Oh, all those little hidden things. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you, because I think that statue is so meaningful to so many people. So it was really interesting behind the scenes to get a project like this started. Ben has this very artistic mind, and he can come up with all of these concepts, but to get it down on paper and for other people to help him with, there's quite a process. And we started out, I was lucky to be invited to a photo shoot. And when they'd already decided on the design of the statue, and so we needed two females about the size of Carrie. And then I do want to tell you, even though this is based off of or inspired by the story that Marissa wrote, that other individual is kind of a compilation of not only Marissa, but some other women that served with Carrie and things. But we had Carrie's uniform, Her mom brought that out. On the left-hand side in blue, that is Paula, Carrie's mom. She brought her uniform. Marissa brought her uniform. And then we needed 2 models that could wear those uniforms. And then Ben took hundreds and hundreds of pictures and had them, hold weapons and things like that. But to add just a little bit more behind the scenes to the story, we picked 2 women that are currently serving in the Idaho National Guard. And I would like to introduce one this morning. We have Isabella Edwards, if you want to just stand and wave and say hello. And what's your rank and what unit are you serving in right now?
I'm PFC and I'm in 116th HHC Brigade.
Okay. She came out and she was Carrie's height and build and things. And actually, Carrie's mom it gave her chills. She had a watch that Carrie always wore. And Isabella wore that. And so these are some of the pictures from the photo shoot. The other individual with the dark hair is Eliza Tyner, and she is currently deployed with the 116th right now in the Middle East. And she is actually a medic, which we didn't even know at that time that that was Marissa's job when she was in Iraq was as a medic. Do you have anything else you want to add about that day?
That was so special as well, because not only meeting and spending time with Paula, but just to see the scene that Paula and Marissa had kind of in their mind and become kind of the hands that gets to create this idea that they had. And the idea is to communicate friendship, which is what that story Marbles is all about. And I know everybody in the military can relate to that camaraderie that you have. And so the 2 are talking in a moment and they're near the stack of sandbags that Danny and his wife helped us drag in there, all these heavy sandbags, and we set it all up. So we set a scene of friendship and of love that will never end, even when there's loss. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Most of us, thank goodness, will never know that loss as a parent, but through this whole process, this has been a very healing thing for Paula. She's come out to more events, talked to more people about it, and at one point she was never going to let go of that of Carrie's uniform and things. And just recently talking to her, she's looking at donating it to the Warhawk Air Museum when they get their new Global War on Terror wing built out there. They'll have a Carrie French display and she wants to donate that. So anything else you'd like to add?
This is just so special. I really am grateful today to talk to you about it, because we're going to make it so that it's world class. That was one of the things that Danny talked to me about, that if we're going to do this and honor Carrie, we have to do it right. It has to look like her and be exact. So everything down to the stitching on the gear and the clothing that she's wearing, to her face and those eyes, it's going to do it and hit the heart. And it's important because we're going to have people from all over that come to see this, and veterans that come from all over the country to see it. We want to do it right.
Okay, thank you very much. So glad to have him here today, because I call Ben and talk to him frequently. Even when I was in Washington, D.C., I was like, okay, which statues are yours? Because I wanted to see them all. Somewhere. He'll be in Nebraska working on a statue. He'll be in Florida, Indiana, and things. So not only were we doing this project, we were just lucky to have him in town and be able to speak with us today. So I would like to introduce Mayor Jarom Wagoner. He is the mayor of Caldwell, and also Councilman Chuck Danny. Got it. And Brian Kita in the back there. Brian reached out to the garden some time ago and said that they would like to donate the majority of their funds raised for their 4th of July celebration to the Idaho Veterans Garden and the memorial. So Mayor, would you like to come up and say a few words?
You can give us 1 minute.
Yeah.
Minute, we're gonna switch the battery so that
Oh.
people online can see. Credit you deserve.
They may prefer not to see. Given the option.
I'm so glad I have technical support.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Okay.
no problem.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Well, yes, thank you so much for the invitation to come out and to be with you. It really is an honor and a privilege to be out here. Yeah, just again, want to recognize Councilor Stoddard, who's with us today. So he is the liaison for the city council with our Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall and heavily involved with that. Great for all he does for our veterans in Caldwell. And also Danny with the Idaho Veterans Garden. So like I said, just a privilege to really be out here on that. I read that story yesterday, and yes, it brings you to tears. And I took to my executive assistant and I said, you have to read this, but have a box of Kleenexes close by. And so just an amazing story to kind of get a glimpse into Carrie's life on that. And so just such an honor to have her be from Caldwell. I'm a Caldwell High School graduate myself, so kind of share that bond with her. I graduated in 95, so 10 years before Carrie did. But again, or probably 9 years before. She was probably 04, or if I'm not mistaken. So, but again, what a privilege just to have that connection on that. And I was able to meet her mom at our 4th of July parade. So she was our grand marshal this year, which was just an awesome experience to get to meet her and talk with her a little bit at that event. So I took office last year. And Caldwell's always had an amazing 4th of July, from the parade that we have, and then the activities afterwards in our memorial park, and then the fireworks at night. And I grew up in Caldwell and had been attending the parade for decades, really, and all the events. And so when I took office as mayor, we wanted to just elevate it. And so we were talking, well, how do we do that? And we're like, well, why don't we not only just have the great celebration you have, but how do we raise money for veterans? And so we did that last year. That's the first time we've done that. Kind of took that perspective of it, starting to raise money, get sponsorships, to get more money coming in, and so we reached out to kind of the two organizations we have in the city, the Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall and the Idaho Veterans Garden. We kind of teamed up with them to kind of focus on one year and one the next. And so last year was Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall. Then this year, able to work with Danny and Idaho Veterans Garden, and also with the Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall too. They helped out. Terry Harrell, who is a big part over there, was really integral to for this year to raise that money. And, a lot of that money, not all of it, is going to be going to help pay for this statue. So we're excited to have raised, so we're able to raise over $20,000 this year through that event. It's just fantastic. And so, yeah, just a great start for that, and excited to have that, and those funds go towards, and I know that there's some matching funds out there that we're looking at to get to make that even more. So it's just really a privilege and an honor to be here, to be from Caldwell, and to share that and have this be part of our community. Caldwell is an amazing place. If you haven't been out there, now this gives you even more reason to come to kind of visit our downtown. The garden's not too far from our downtown, and by the Boise River there. So it's just a kind of tucked away, but still just a beautiful area. And again, just want to recognize Carrie and her service, and all the men and women that serve our country and give their all for keeping our freedom safe and everything that we just hold dear to our hearts and our souls. So it's just a privilege to be a part of that and to be here with you and to do what we can do. As much, that dunk tank that I did in the wintertime, I was supposed to be in the dunk tank at the 4th of July, but I got an ear infection. My doctor told me no. I'm like, you kidding me? It's 100 degrees outside. I can't get in it, but 25 degrees outside and I can. So hopefully next year I can get in when it's warm. But yeah, we'll be doing that again this year, I'm sure, this winter. So to raise more money for that Veterans Garden. So again, thank you for inviting us out here. Grateful to be here and represent Caldwell and everything that they do, and just excited to be a part of this. And thank you so much to Ben. That was just a great story too, and just so much respect for you and what you do and the talents that you have to share that with so many others, and just kind of reminds us what's important in life and things like that. So thank you again so
Hey,
very much.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And that kind of leads us into our next presenter. In the veteran world, there's a lot of different organizations that are either trying to raise money, giving money away, partnering on things. And the John Borbonus Memorial Foundation is one of those. And they reached out, and I was able to put them in contact with the garden. And Veronique Borbonus, would you like to come up and talk about the foundation? And Hayward Sawyer is on the memorial board too. I don't know if you want to come up now or bring you up here after she's done. Okay. John Borbonus was the same age as Carrie was when he was killed in Iraq. Veronique is his cousin. From what I hear, they grew up very close, kind of like brother and sister. And so she's here to tell us a little bit about John and about the family foundation. And then we've got another announcement today. Oh, you need a hug.
It never gets easier. So like she said, I'm Veronique Borbonus. I am John's cousin. Just a second. I didn't really put together a fancy speech or anything. I just wanted to share a couple of little tidbits about our family, about John. So my uncle Hans, he came to this country from Germany in 1959. He was about 24 years old. About 20 years later, he met John's mom while he was on safari in Africa. And she came back here and they had John, their only son, only child. Like you said, John and I, we were raised together. We did everything together, even though we had a 5-year age gap. He was my little buddy. When John was little, we spent a lot of time up at the cabin, which Hans built this beautiful cabin up in Donley. And John used to always play with his little army plastic guys and make guns out of sticks and just get into mischief. And, it was something that I always thought, he just likes to play with his little army guys and stuff. But when I moved to Los Angeles is when I found out that John wanted to enlist into the military. It was something that Hans didn't encourage, neither did my father. My father served in Germany, and he also served here in the Guard. His unit was going to be deployed to Vietnam, and then last minute they pulled their unit and sent another one. I wanted to read something here. Throughout the years, we have met a lot of the guys that John served with, that John saved. And I feel like they've all come to us at certain times when they've been ready to share their story, to get their closure, Whether it's going to John's grave and sitting there, or John also has a statue, which is up at the Kelly's Whitewater Park, and I can explain that whole story because a lot of people don't understand why it's all the way up in Cascade at a whitewater park. John had nothing to do with whitewater rafting. But this is something I wanted to read. It is actually from Captain Hayes' speech, which was at the memorial service in Iraq. And here goes. So at the time of John's death, he was still a private. After he had passed, he was, I can never say the word,
Posthumously.
there you go, that one. He was then given the rank of specialist. So at the time of his passing, Private First Class John Borbonus was a true warrior and embodied characteristics every soldier should strive to emulate. As a platoon machine gunner and dismount, his versatility made him irreplaceable. He was attentive and diligent, manning a platoon machine gun. He was proud of his role protecting soldiers to the right and left of him. Over the course of his deployment, John had come to excel in making intelligent and accurate split-second decisions. On the 12th of April, 2007, John was manning an M240 machine gun in a primary guard position when a dump truck filled with explosives came speeding towards the barriers at the southern end of the patrol base. Without hesitation or regard for his own safety, John held his position and engaged the vehicle, shooting and killing the driver. His heroism that day saved many soldiers' lives. Like I said, this never gets easier. We knew when John was going to Iraq that, of course, there's always the potential he could have gotten hurt. John always had such a positive outlook on everything in life. I asked him one day, I said, buddy, what happens if you go over there and you get hurt? And he said, well, I don't know. It's not really a big deal. He said, because then they'll send me to the hospital in Germany and then our family can come see me and I can visit them and then I get to come home. The guys that I have met over the years, they have all said that John was the one that kept them going. During terrible trainings, in pouring rain, cold, in Alaska, John was always the one that said, come on, guys, if you quit now, we're not going to make it. And let's just get this done. When John was killed, we knew we wanted to do something to preserve his memory and to do something for fellow veterans. We actually had, a month after his passing, on August 19, he was killed a month before his 20th birthday. We had a memorial golf tournament for him. And that's kind of what started the ball rolling on what can we do to preserve his legacy and to keep his name alive. So over the years, we have given quite a bit of money to different veterans groups. We've also given money to the Boise State Men's and Women's Golf Association, just because John loved to golf and his dad had Falcon Crest Golf Course. After Hans passed away, he wanted a large portion of the sale of the golf course to go to the foundation. so that we can continue to help veterans and, not in other entities in the state anyhow. Over the years, in the MEPS room down at the federal building, if some of you are familiar with that. I don't remember the year that was named after John. John's uniform is in a glass case, which I figured was better than being in my closet all these years. Again, there's the statue of John up in Cascade. I don't know what else to say.
You want to make an announcement, you want Hayward to come up?
Hayward, you're more than welcome.
Hayward Sawyer, if you would like to come up. Hayward is not only a Vietnam veteran and a Purple Heart recipient that I've gotten to know through the Military Order of the Purple Heart, but he is on the board of the John Borbonus Memorial Foundation. And they reached out, put him in contact with the garden. And even though we've gotten it out on social media a little bit, would you like to make the official announcement to joining forces about what the Borbonus Foundation is going to do?
Well, you can see why it's an honor to serve on this board in honor of this family and John. And so as a part of on the committee, I have the opportunity to be on the grants committee in addition to the board. So we have decided on the board's behalf and the family's behalf to do a $50,000 match in behalf and for the benefit of this monument. And so that was announced, and again, I'm part of the family. As I said, it's an honor to be here and be a part of this. So.
So, in addition to that $50,000 match, there was a donor that reached out to Danny and was willing to match up to $25,000. And so the garden started a summer fundraiser campaign June 17th to raise $75,000 in 75 days. And so that campaign is going through the 31st of August. This number up here, $4,810, was how much had been raised as of July 7th. We didn't know until this morning with the figure that the mayor gave us that that'll bump that up another $20,000 there. So we're well on our way. The garden is to that $75,000. So there's brochures out on the table back there. Get the word out about this. The total cost of the project is about $300,000. $150,000 had already been raised or matched in 16 months. And so the balance that's left is $150,000. So with this, if they can raise $75,000 by the end of summer with match, very generous match to Borbonus Foundation and this other donor, that'll put them over the top. And we can make sure that Ben stays in Boise and gets some work done for a while. So, hey, anybody have any questions? Well, you've got all of these fabulous people here from the garden, the Borbonus Foundation, Ben Victor. Does anybody have any questions? None? Oh, come on.
You have another $6,000 to spend, so
What?
you said another 6,000.
Oh, okay. Technology, Danny's on his phone. 6,000 coming in. Okay. Get on those phones, people. Let's get those donations coming in. So, okay, thank you very much. So, okay. Let's see here. We're right up against the end of the hour here. Next month, thank you. I'm sorry. We'll continue to have our meetings here. I'm working on the theme for next month's meeting to be education. We've got some great people with Idaho Division of Veteran Services in our Education Bureau. They're hoping to be here. We've got other organizations like Upward Bound with Boise State University that helps veterans kind of help with some of those remedial skills, especially if they're kind of nervous about getting back into the classroom. But anything having to do with education, to bring those people in before the school year starts and let you know if veterans are looking for education benefits or things that can help them while they're getting their education. So if you have any ideas or if there's an organization that you've heard about that you want to learn more about, let me know and we'll try to get them on board for that. So, hey, that is it for this month. Thank you everyone for coming out, and please stay around, talk, and get to know everybody in the room.
It's